that doing that now? Hello everybody, welcome to the live stream. There's something odd going on with my computer, but I think it's all working. If you're new to these, I normally do these every week when I'm around on a Friday. And what we do, we take a look at what's been going on in markets during the week, and a lot has been going on, of course, this week with UK budget, and also big slide in stock markets. This is the S&P from Wednesday. No, it's the NASDAQ, sorry. So the NASDAQ from Wednesday. So the highs in the overnight market were about 20,650, and it's traded as low as 19.9 yesterday. So a big sell-off. I bought the NASDAQ yesterday, but 20,002. So I'm hoping for a bit of a bounce today. But we'll have a look at different markets, the major stuff. Then if there's anything you want looking at, if you put it in the chat, and we'll take a look at that as well. Because we have had some earnings this week. We had Google/Alphabet on Monday. Initially well received. That was the gap. Oh, maybe it's Tuesday. That was the gap. And that sold off since then. There was Meta and Microsoft, wasn't there? Microsoft, that's Meta. They got hit a bit, but have bounced back a little bit so far today. What have Microsoft done? Let's have a look at those. They took quite a big hit, Microsoft. So they closed at 432 and opened at 415 on Thursday. And they've stabilised a bit since then. So lots going on with US markets and markets in general. You know, we've seen the pound. It's been a bit of a crazy week, I think. You know, the pound got hit yesterday. So initially, this was the budget on Wednesday, and the markets were like, okay, bit of volatility, not much direction. And then yesterday, the pound fell off a cliff yesterday, dropping 150 points, and it's rallied today. So I think it's been an odd week. I've only traded the Nasdaq this week. I've been long 3 times. So I came out for a profit on one, got stopped out for a loss on another, and I'm long again from yesterday. So we'll see how today goes. But that's it. So before we get into it all, let's do what? Let's just go through some of the housekeeping. Let's just do a risk warning. This presentation is only for educational purposes. It doesn't contain and shouldn't be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences or results. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. That's that. I did a webinar a couple of weeks ago, and you can have access to it if you want. I did it on my trading approach for US indices. So the setups I use for US indices, where to place stop losses, very important. You know, that trade I did on the NASDAQ yesterday, that's got a wide stop because the market, you know, has moved 800 points in the last couple of days. So I talk about that, where to place stop losses. When to take profits, very important, of course, because a profit's not a profit until it's taken. The low risk / high reward approach for false breaks, trading false breaks. Sorry, I've managed to wind my microphone around the leg of my chair and it was strangling me. When not to trade, you know, just as important, obviously, as when to trade. I think it can be very exciting, particularly when you get the sort of volatility that we've had the last couple of days. To jump in and try and trade everything, but sitting on your hands is a good idea. I won't be trading anything today. I've got my NASDAQ trade on. So to be honest, I'm pretty much done for today. I'll see, obviously keep an eye on it as the day goes on, but no more trades for me today. And also what's right for you, you know, position trading or day trading, you know, the more medium-term approach to trading or the really short-term approach to trading. I do both. I think there's, you know, I've definitely got my preferences. And it's so I talk a bit about that. So you can have access to this webinar. I'll give you the details later on how to do it. But that's it. Let's take a look ahead to next week. So this week, it's been a big week. We had the non-farm payrolls today. I didn't even know what happened with those, actually. They were a bit of a non-event, weren't they, today, the non-farm payrolls? What do they look like in the end? Let's have a look. So they came out whenever it was. So, okay, so the consensus was 113. And they came in at 12. Does that sound right? Maybe that is right. Hang on a second. Non-farm payrolls. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, added only 12,000 jobs in October in shock pre-election drop, and of course we've got that next week, the US election. So it's been a busy week this week. Had the payrolls, had lots of earnings, had the UK budget. Next week's a lot quieter, apart from the US election, of course. The slight trifling matter of who ends up being the leader of the free world. We do have that to get through. And then we've got on Thursday UK interest rate decision and US interest rate decision, which I'm guessing is delayed by a day because of the aforementioned election. So big day on Thursday with the UK. Obviously, the US is more important. So let's see what happens with that. So that's the major stuff for that. Oh, someone's just said hurricanes and strikes. Thanks for that, JH, for the jobs. The reason the jobs numbers was so low. Fair enough. Right, let's have a look at the markets. Let's have a look. I found it an odd week. You know, there are some weeks where I feel quite in tune with things, and there are other weeks where I just feel a bit out of step with things. And this has definitely been a bit of an out of step week for me, which is why I've really only traded the Nasdaq this week. But let's go through some of the stuff and see what's been happening. Let's look at the medium term picture. You know, we've had an exciting couple of days for US stock markets. It's always exciting when markets fall, but you know, to keep a sense of perspective, this is the S&P. The high in the S&P was hit only 2 weeks ago. 17th of October, it hit a fresh all-time high. So, you know, by definition, for me anyway, this is a market that's strong. So I want to buy the dip on the S&P. It would take a much bigger dip than the dip we had over the last couple of days to make me think a top is still in place. So for me, I am still treating dips as buying opportunities. You know, we've got like I say, the US election next week. Let's see what happens. I mean, it's all a bit on a knife edge, isn't it? Because Mr. Trump has definitely crept ahead in the betting markets. I think the last few weeks, not so much crept ahead actually. He is the favourite. But you know how reflective that is of what goes on at the polls. Who knows? But we'll know soon enough. We'll know next week. So let's see what happens. But for me, on the S&P, a level to watch, 5670-ish, which was the low from here, early October. It has held so far anyway. Let's see. But blah, that's up. The trend on the S&P is still up. Nasdaq, so I'm long the Nasdaq. Let's get rid of that. The Nasdaq has not been as strong in recent months as the S&P. You know, we had the all-time high for the Nasdaq in July, mid-July. It's come close to that, very close to that. That high was about 20,790. Just on Wednesday, it got to 675, so 115 points within that, near that high. So let's see what happens. If you really wanted to go short the Nasdaq, then it's a great, you know, in terms of risk reward, it's a good place to go short. If I was going short, put a stopper, I don't know, somewhere above 20,800 and see what happens. But for now, I think it is still strong. But let's see. Like I say, I bought the Nasdaq yesterday. We've got a bit of support again, early October. You know, quite big support really, down ahead of 19.6. So let's see what happens. Maybe today, you know, okay, it's had a good start over the last hour or so, but maybe today, after the volatility we've had the last couple of days, just ends up being a bit of a choppy day overall. So, I hope it goes up 500 points. That'd be great. But maybe we just get a bit of chop today. Let's see what happens. So that's the US markets. Now, European markets, very, very odd picture, I think, you know, but again, the trends are still up. This is the DAX, all right? This is the German index. So the trend, this is going back to October 22. So we're 2 years into this latest bit of the trend for the Germans. It hit an all-time high in October, like the S&P. So it's strong. We've got good support ahead of 18.9. So again, even though the last couple of days we've seen it drop about 650 points, the trend is still strong, I think. So yeah, so I'd still be a buyer of the dip. It wouldn't surprise me, when is the US election? It's on Tuesday, isn't it? It wouldn't surprise me if we had a very cautious couple of days, Monday, Tuesday next week. So let's see what happens until we know what's going on there. But for the DAX, the trend is still up. If we look at something like the FTSE, as usual, sort of doing its own thing a bit. The FTSE, the budget this week we had that UK economic decisions tend not to have too much of an impact on the FTSE 100 as a whole, because the FTSE 100, let's not forget what makes up the FTSE. It's the likes of BP, Shell, HSBC, blah, 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 all these big international companies. So what's happening in the little island off the coast of France doesn't have that much of an impact on FTSE 100 companies, or not as big an impact as perhaps the layman might think it has. What tends to have, arguably, is more reflective of the UK economy is the FTSE 250. And I haven't looked at that lately. What's the FTSE 250? This is an ETF of the FTSE 250. It's pretty flat anyway, isn't it? It's sold off a bit. Pretty boring. Anyway, FTSE 100, it's all been a bit sideways since May now. So what's that? 6 months. 6 months of pretty much sideways for the FTSE. But the big trend is still up. It's just not as trendy in terms of trending as other markets, So, we've not been knocked towards the bottom of the range. There's an argument to be a buyer, maybe. So, yeah, not very exciting. The FTSE 100 index. The Japanese market, we had that massive sell-off in July into August. I mean, I still can't quite believe it today. From 42.5 to 30, to a 30% drop in the space of a month, but it's bounced back. So for me, I'd probably still buy the dips on that. But again, from the dailies, a little bit sideways overall. So for me, the US markets continue to be the most interesting markets. And I think hopefully when we get this election out of the way, we'll have a bit more clarity as to the direction for the next few months. Let's see what happens. So that's all that stuff. We'll have a quick look at bonds. We'll have a look at UK bonds, the gilts market, because of the old, not the election, the budget this year. A lot has been made in the press, or the press I read anyway, about gilts getting hammering after the Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor's budget. And it's fair enough. Yesterday they did trade down to their worst levels since November last year. When was old Trussy in? Liz Truss's, for those of us in the UK, Liz Truss's and, Kwasi Kwarteng's budget that caused absolute mayhem was back there. So that's where UK bonds are after the budget. But they were sliding anyway. It's been a bit of a funny old year in bond markets. So let's see. I did wonder if we were going to get a bounce there, but not so far. Let's see what happens. Again, I think the dust needs to settle on a lot of this stuff. So not too interesting to look at, but not really a trade for me there yet either. But in focus this week because of the old doodahs budget. Let's take a look at some other markets. The dollar index. It's been a bit flat over the last week. So again, what do you do? We had this great run up, and it's been pretty sideways for a week and a half now. So I don't know. So when I don't know, I will just do nothing. It has been sliding for much of this week. Arguably, be a seller, sell the rallies. But again, I think it's an election. It's the US election on Tuesday. Let's get that out of the way and see where everything is after that. Gold has had a really good run. I would still be a buyer of the dips on gold. So gold has outperformed the S&P this year, or it had when I checked a week ago. So only on Wednesday of this week, we saw fresh all-time highs for gold. So it sold off a bit, but there's the trend. It's been a great trend for gold. I would buy the dip. The only question I would have is where would my stop go? Based off the hourlies, I think is a minimum. Probably the other side of 2,700 at the moment. Nice round number, easy to remember. The lows from mid-October I think that could be an interesting one. But you know, interesting again to see where all that is after the US election. I thought palladium was interesting this week. I haven't traded this one for a long time. I traded it on the way up back in 2019. And we've had a good run in palladium since August. You know, it's up like almost 50% pretty much, wasn't it? But what I thought was interesting was that the last major high for palladium was in December of 2023, around about 12.50. And it's exactly where it ran out of steam this week on Tuesday. It got as high as 12.50 and said, nope, bang. And it got slammed back down. So for me, despite the strong performance over the last few months, I think I'd be tempted to still be a seller of palladium. But if it breaks 12.50, then perhaps finally this is the price of palladium on the ton. And we can have a look at perhaps a bigger recovery. I don't know, but interesting. But again, not a lot for me to do there at the moment. Crude oil. I was expecting a recovery in crude oil. It did come this week. It just came later than I thought it was going to come. Again, though, look at this. This market over the last 12, 18 months is pretty sideways. Big swings, you know, from $94 in September to as low as 66 in September. But broadly speaking, sideways. So again, not a lot to do. You know, it's at the bottom of that range. So if you wanted to be a buyer, there's the argument to be a buyer. On the hourlies, that's what it looks like on the hourlies. I thought, you know, we have had this recovery this week. It gapped open on Sunday night, Monday morning this week. So it closed last Friday at 72.5. Opened on Sunday at 68.5, near enough. Sold off, and then it's been recovering since Tuesday. And I've run the WhatsApp group. I put in the WhatsApp group this morning. It's had a good run, but I wonder, is it going to run into difficulty again because of this downtrend, because of the old highs? And clearly, that must be off the payrolls, I guess, in the last hour or so, or maybe not. Maybe it's something else. Who knows? Hang on, let's have a look. Let's look on the 10 minutes. Was it the payrolls that sparked that off? No, not really. Okay, whatever. So it's something spooked it in the last hour or so. But I thought, you know, it is going short oil, the better trade here, because the trend has been down, you know, on this bit of the chart for the last 3 weeks. So again, quite a mixed picture. You know, the daily chart, it's at the bottom of the range. The hourly chart, the trend is still down. So there's lots of this conflicting stuff at the moment. So that's why I'm not doing much. But yeah, so I would be, if I had to do anything up here, I'd be a seller. But I'd probably rather sit on my hands and see what happens next. Natural gas. I mean, natural gas is a crazy market at the best of times, isn't it? So we've had some good swings this year. But again, you could say in the great scheme of things, it's broadly sideways over the last 12 months. You know, it ended last year at 260. We're at 217 today, and it was about 260 3 weeks ago. You know, so lots of noise, not much direction. I don't know what I would do if I had to do a trade in natural gas at the moment. And there's quite a few markets that I do feel that way about at the moment. I suppose an aggressive trade could be to be a buyer. If you thought, okay, we had the correction from early October into mid-October, it's bounced, it's come back for a retest. I'm going to buy it with a stop the other side of 210 or something. I don't know. It's not a trade for me, but it'd be quite interesting to see if that old level holds. So, yeah. And Bitcoin, I saw someone mention Bitcoin. It is worthy of note, Bitcoin, because look at that. It touched almost the all-time high, the old all-time high. So again, if you want to go short Bitcoin, this is the brilliant place to go short in terms of risk reward with stops above 75. You know, of course, the flip side is if it breaks out, then many people would expect that to be the start of the next leg higher. So, yeah, I mean, the big trend is still up, going back to December 22 now, going back 2 years. That trend is still up. So let's call it 75,000 on Bitcoin. I think is an interesting level because it's the old high. So do we see it take it out? So if I was going short, I'd be stops above 75. If I was buying it, because there's definitely an argument to be a buyer or a seller of Bitcoin. If I was buying it, I would probably want to stop below 58, I think, at the moment, based off the dailies. off Bitcoin because it's a volatile market, isn't it? Obviously. So that's it. That's our quick run through the market. So there's a lot of might go up, might go down out there as far as I'm concerned. I think the election next week is playing its part as well. Let's get that out of the way. Let's have a quick look at pound against the dollar while we're doing that. So again, pound against the dollar is another example. It's been drifting for the last month. Got slammed yesterday, has bounced back, but if you look at the bigger picture over the last year and a half, the trend is up. So we've got lots of conflicting trends. So for me, there's been not a lot to do this week apart from my little Nasdaq trades. Let's see what happens. So for me, going into next week, we've got the US election. That is going to be obviously the big event for November. Last time around, and I think the time before that, there were some big swings in the overnight market in the S&P. So I might actually stay up and watch the results coming in. But there were some crazy swings. I think it was about 6:30 UK time in the morning last time, because it seemed like Trump was winning at one point the last time around, and we saw this massive swing in the S&P, and then he wasn't, and it swung the other way. So overnight markets could be crazy. But let's see where we are on Wednesday when the election's been and gone. But for me, US stocks, the trend is still up. If you've watched these for any amount of time, that's been something I've been saying for a long time. And I'm happy to buy the dips, and here we are. We're only a couple of weeks ago that the S&P saw fresh all-time high. So I think for me, that is the interesting market to watch. Plus, of course, let's chuck a bit of dollar in there as well, because it's the US dollar. And also gold. I wonder how markets will react to if Mr. Trump comes in. How will they react? Is it being priced in already at the moment? I don't know. Let's see. There's no point. I think there's no point in second guessing it. Let's just see where things are next week. So that's it. So we'll look now at the stuff you want to look at. But I should say, a little commercial break. I run a WhatsApp group. I've been running it for 18 months. There's a daily update from me in the morning. Markets that look interesting. Trades I've got running. Markets I'm watching. I talk about the stop levels, all of that. And there's a Q&A throughout the day. If you join the WhatsApp group, you get access to 3 webinars that I did just for the WhatsApp group. There's 2 day trading webinars in there. And there's an options webinar in there. And it's on a monthly basis. So you can try it for a month. If you don't like it, you can go. And the webinars are worth much more than 1 month's subscription. So if you'd like to try it, if you go to the website, the link is all in the description, davidjonestrading.co.uk. And if you sign up to the WhatsApp group, use the code YouTube, you get 20% off the first month. And I think there's a bunch of people who've subscribed in the last month because of a video I did. So there's a load of new subscribers to the website, so welcome along. I also run a weekly newsletter that's free. Again, if you go to the website, you can sign up by putting your address in there and you get that free of charge. Okay, but the WhatsApp group, if you go to subscribe on the website, the WhatsApp group is there. You can sign up and use the code YouTube and get a 20% discount, and then you get daily updates and afternoon updates from me, and you'll have access to those 3 webinars, so you should try it. And that's a snapshot of what it looks like. Right, let's have a look. And that's who I trade with. If you want I'll do more about who I trade with in the weeks ahead, but I do all my short-term trading with a company, particularly because they've got tight spreads, and it's nice, no frills trading platform. If you go to bit.ly/DavidTrade, you can try them out, and you can trade small, so you can try out new things. And again, all the links to this is in the description. Right, let's take a look at the stuff you want looking at. Bitcoin, we look more than that. So Mr. Blaggy said, I've lost more than 130k. I'm literally broke. Okay, I am sorry to hear that. But and unfortunately, it's something I've heard a lot from a lot of people over the years. I hope you can recover from it. It's only money, which is easy for me to say. But be careful with trading. Can we have a look at CRH in the US? CRH PLC. Yes, we can. That is a buy, isn't it? What do they do? Non-energy minerals, construction materials. It's interesting that, isn't it? That's had a great trend, hasn't it, CRH? So they started moving. October 22, this trend goes back to... and they've all been a bit sideways, breaks out. It's almost textbook, that is, for me, Nick. Breaks out, pulls back, and off we go again. So I would be a buyer, and I would have, the closest I'd have my stop at the moment would be below the old breakout level. So below there. So below 88, somewhere like that. Somewhere down there. Or even down here, if I wanted to be a bit more conservative. But what a lovely, that's almost textbook that, isn't it? Textbook, breakout, retest, bang, off we go. Interesting chart, nice chart. What's that done since October then, 22? $33 to 95, so it's tripled in a couple of years. It's a great breakout. I did a lot with US stocks earlier in the year. I've still got about 20 US stock positions going. My biggest winner at the moment is Bank of New York. I'm still in that from whenever. I'm going to start doing more again next year, so that's one of my big winners at the moment. And I'll talk more about it on these. But yeah, it's always interesting, US stocks. You know, there's always something that, even if the market is all over the place, like it has been at the moment, you know, there's always something that's interesting and is bucking that overall market craziness. So nice spot there. FTSE 250. We did have a quick look at that, didn't we? FTSE 250. I've only got the ETFs. I'm sure there is a way of finding it on TradingView, but I can only ever find the ETF. So, but it's all been. Oh God, I've lost it already, haven't I? Hang on a second. It's been a bit sideways and a bit boring, the 250. There it is. So that's the performance. You know, it's well off its all-time highs. Are they even all-time highs? Yeah, in September. It's been a real poor performer, the UK stock market. You know, it's really, and obviously global stock markets have done well, but, and I said before, you know, when it comes to my ISAs and SIPs and stuff, it's all basically S&P and NASDAQ ETFs. But definitely when I started investing years and decades ago, my bias was very much the UK, you know, because obviously I live in the UK, so you tend to look to your home market. But, you know, if you'd have had 10 grand in the FTSE 200 over the last 10 years, or 10 grand in the S&P, you know, you've done much better in the S&P. It's it's just you know, it's just rubbish, isn't it? Not very good performance at all. So I definitely prefer US stocks. That all looks just a little bit boring to me at the moment, the FTSE 250. Is it time to short Tesla? Oh, it must be, mustn't it? It must be about that time. They had a big move, didn't they? Yes, it is time to short Tesla. I mean, there's this downtrend. For me, the trend in Tesla is down since November 2021. So we are 3 years into that. Let's walk it through. So there you go. Lovely downtrend, blah, blah, blah. When was that? July 23. Sells off, blah, blah, blah. And all it's done is come back to this whole problem area, is how I see it for Tesla. So for me, getting in my time machine, you know, going back and going short at 260. Even today, though, at 252. So for me, being short Tesla makes sense. And I'm a fan of Teslas, don't get me wrong. But I just think the stock, you know, the trend is down, and it tries to rally sort of 280, 300, and it just cannot get through. So yeah, I would be a seller, and I'd have a stop. I would probably want to stop above 300 on Tesla. Maybe, though, if Mr. Trump gets in, because Mr. Musk is best buddies, isn't he, with Donald Trump? Is that going to have any impact? I don't know. Who knows? Let's see on Wednesday. Yeah, for me, based off that, I would be a seller. But it did have that big move on. What was it? I can't even. Was it? Well, it was earnings. So it was earnings. It moved on. So a 21% positive surprise on earnings this week. So there we go. Arabica coffee. Okay, Tenerife Kev. It was IG's trade of its long. Right, Arabica coffee. I always get confused with the coffees because there's two types of coffee. There's coffee, that one. Oh, that's Robusta, that's Arabica. I would be a buyer. I would be a buyer on that one. I mean, it's a bit of a shoppy old market, isn't it? That. But the trend is up. So, all the positives are there, I would say, at the moment. We've moved out to fresh highs, wherever they were, right, through 260. The market sold off. I think if someone got stopped out of that, their stop was too tight, I think. But for me, I would be a buyer when it stopped sliding, and it's still sliding at the moment. So it's one for Monday for me at the earliest. The closest I would have my stop is the other side of 237, but I'd probably want it the other side of 220. So that is what I would do with coffee Arabica or Arabica, however you say it. So it's interesting though, but the trend is definitely up. So yes, there you go. That's that. Have you ever read The Disciplined Trader by Mark Douglas? Yes, I have. It's a good book. I read it really early on when I first started trading, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me because I think, like a lot of people, when I first start trading, all I care about are indicators and, candlestick patterns and all of that sort of stuff. And I think it's only when you've been trading a while, because it talks about psychology and the importance of price and all of that it does make sense. So I'm a big fan of Disciplined Trader, and Trading in the Zone is also Mark Douglas's other book. Sadly died, I think, about 10 years ago. Mark Douglas, I think he's relatively young. But it's interesting book on trading, yeah. But if don't buy it thinking you're going to have, trading formula, it is all very much about psychology and discipline and stuff like that. Would you still be long lean hogs? Would I indeed? Let's have a look. I haven't looked at those for a while. I've got cattle in there. Where's lean hogs? There they are. No, I'd be short now. That's interesting, isn't it? I mean, the trend is that is almost a textbook downtrend, isn't it? From June 2021. So 3 years. 3 years? Yeah, 3 years. So I would be thinking about going short lean hogs. And I would put my stop loss probably above the April high at 90. I'm guessing that's 97 cents a pound. Who knows? But interesting market that though. See what happens up there with lean hogs. But I would be looking to go short unless it breaks out. But I would go short. What is your opinion of Curiosity Stream? Curiosity Stream. What's the code? Curie. Curious. I think it's a great name for a business. That's what I think. What do they do? Right, I have to Google this now. Let's see what they do. Curiosity Stream. Curiosity Stream. They're a streaming company, are they? Are they like a Netflix? An extensive library of high quality documentaries, series and shows covering a wide range of fascinating topics. All right, there you go. God, they got absolutely slammed though, didn't they? So again, had a bit of I was going to say that was a COVID surge, but it was maybe a bit late for COVID because it was December 2020. And then, since then, absolutely terrible performance. So they peaked at $24 in Feb 21. They've traded as low as, 48 cents. So the trend is up, but I'm going to say what I always say with these, it's such a volatile stock, isn't it? Or it's moved such a long way. Where did you put your stop loss, And as a complete professional, I, of course, think about stop losses, but most people won't, and I'll just pile in. If I was a buyer, I'd want my stop loss at the other side of 160, which is a 40% stop loss, isn't it? 30% stop loss, something like that. So the trend is up, and it is interesting that it has all broken out. It's broken some big levels. I think what would be more interesting for me, if we had a big dip, a big sell-off, and flushed out any of these Johnny-come-latelys to the stock, and see where it stops, see where there's real buying conviction. But yeah, based on that, I mean, that is positive. That, it's not just had a little blip like back here and then just completely craps out again. We've had 7 months, 8 months of the thing getting into an uptrend. So yeah, it looks good. The only problem is, as usual, is where would the stop go? I don't know. Let's see. So that's that. That's it. If there's no more questions, someone else has just said Tesla, and I said I would be short Tesla. Like I said, the only market I'm watching today is the NASDAQ, because I got my trade on. See where that goes. We've got the US election next Tuesday. Let's see where things are after that. If things go crazy, I might do a live stream on Wednesday. If things are crazy after the US election, maybe I'll have a look at that. Otherwise, I think we're done. We're done for the day, aren't we? So lots to watch. You know, I think US indices, dollar index, and gold is what I would suggest the three markets to watch. And I'm not going to be in a hurry to do anything until Tuesday's election is out of the way in the United States. So let's see what happens. If you want to join the WhatsApp group, use the code YouTube. I've seen someone has actually signed up while I've been talking, which makes me very happy. Bit of business on a Friday afternoon. So I'll sort that out for you in the next hour and put you in the group. But if anyone else wants to join the group, join up, use the code YouTube. You get access to those 3 webinars, access to me throughout the day. Brilliant, isn't it? Otherwise, that's it. Let's see where we are next week when the US decides what it's going to do. Any questions, feel free to drop me an email. My email address is dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk. All the other information is in the in the description to this. Have a good weekend. Good luck with your trading, and see you next week.